it was, I think it was kind of technically similar. Like I try to paint myself sort of out of my paintings, and because I want to create this sort of credible situation that while it looks manufactured, and I want it to look manufactured, I don't want my own self to be present. I mean, I'm present in it ideologically and stuff like that, but the actual marks, I then anyway, I used to not want to have any obvious brush strokes or anything like that. So I made a lot of things that were kind of blended, very highly blended. I don't know why, but it was so kind of amorphous shapes that were kind of twisting and sort of turning into one another. And I used a lot of burnt umber and raw umber and white. And for the longest time, I think the first year I just spent making these kind of twisted, sort of bone-like white forms that would kind of turn into the darks, and they would sort of curve into each other, a bit like, you know, how you do your beautiful jewelry that's kind of made, you know, with using shell forms as an inspiration. They felt a bit like shell and bone, but kind of abstracted extensions of those things. So they were all abstract, but they were quite sort of tightly painted. And they had come from, I think, probably the first artist that I truly sort of fell in love with, which was Georgia O'Keeffe's kind of bone paintings in the deserts of New Mexico. And I think I felt so overwhelmed by this world that I'd sort of thrown myself into. I think I just needed to start with something that was comfortable, and I was just going to kind of grab on that.
Yeah.
And just started doing those, and then they sort of looked a bit like bodies and a bit like bones, and then I started sort of slightly submerging them in kind of water, so there were kind of bits of them sticking out and bits of them sort of submerged. They seemed like these sort of continents of kind of self and sort of floating in
Interesting.
the sky, and so they had that slightly sort of, they had slightly monumental kind of quality to them in this. So they were forming landscapes, but they were kind of forming these quite barren, quite sensual kind of landscapes. And I think that's, you can sort of feel it, I think, sometimes in my current work. Often I'll do a landscape that's quite empty and it has kind of quite rolly, sort of gentle kind of forms. But I don't know if you'd be able to put them side by side and go, oh, that's
Same
Lucy.
artist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe,
And do you
possibly.
think, were you starting to create those worlds sort of in your mind? Was that starting, was some of those narratives starting to develop in those early times, do you think?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think they've always been there, and they always yes. Yeah, sorry, short answer.
Mm,
Yeah, they were
yeah.
always there in my mind, and they were always there sort of to be worked towards, but I think I perhaps didn't know how to begin to approach those things, because you know you have all these kind of semi-abstracted, lots of different strands of thought, and you don't really know which one to kind of pursue, and nobody sort of tells you, "Oh, this is the one." You know, you have to kind of poke around through your own internal filing cabinet and just start.